A few quick messages before your regularly scheduled railfanning video. Number 1, I had a trip at the beginning of this month where I caught a CN transfer on Norfolk Southern and a pair of C6Ms at the crossing spot in downtown. My camera decided screw you and deleted the footage, so I don't have it. Second, I recorded this while sick, so if my audio sounds weird, that's why. Anyways, we begin on March 10th, and as you can see, I didn't film this, my mom did. This month had an unusually high prevalence of my family members catching trains, which, hey, I'm not complaining. Anyways, this was a Norfolk Southern International Intermodal with a GEVO leading and Dash 9 and C6M in the middle as mid-DPUs. The next day, my mom caught another train, this time on CN, with a frankly ludicrous lash-up. A CN 100th anniversary unit was leading, and CN 3055, a AC44C6M, was trailing second. That doesn't seem cool until you realize that locomotive was rebuilt from BNSF 4479. Yes, that is the Kismet one. Crazy. I've finally, I didn't see it, but this is the second loco featured on the channel that was involved in the Kismet train derailment. Cool. This train also had brand new hoppers in the middle and a CN GEVO as mid-DPU. As you know, if you keep up with the channel, you know that I very rarely see CN. So when my mom got that clip, I was quite excited. CN must have detected that because on that exact same day in the afternoon, we were making a run to Dollar General to grab some pizzas and the gates went down. Rushing to the crossing, I found the CN manifest slowly approaching, with one of the old teardrop window GEVOs leading, with a very nice horn I might say, and an NSC6M trailing second. For the first time since 2018, foreign power is actually becoming relatively easy to spot on the CN South Bend sub. Wonder how long this will last. Too bad it was a Norfolk Southern AC44 though. I've seen CSX YN2s go by on this line. So remember that trip I mentioned that I lost the footage for? Well, the reason I was out on that day was for the duo of Amtrak Operation Lifesaver 203 and 50th Anniversary 46 on the Floridian. Kinda glad I didn't catch them considering I would have been extremely pissed if I lost the footage. And when they made it down to Florida following that trip, they split up the duo. They sent 46 back north on the Floridian with 75, and 203 got on a different Floridian. On March 13th, 46 had fully returned to the Midwest and was coming eastbound that night on the Floridian. So I headed to the hospital spot to catch it, with 75, which has been recently repainted into Phase 7, in the lead. Continuing the theme of my family members catching trains, on March 17th, my brother was at a undisclosed location, I'm not revealing where this is, and caught a South Shore with a FURX leaser and 2010, of course. The next day, on March 18th, I was trackside at that exact same undisclosed location, and another South Shore local was coming through. The FURX leaser was on it still, although trailing this time, and a standard painted South Shore Jeep, not even one of the veterans ones, was leading. The train had to do a little bit of switching before it could proceed to the closest spot at the undisclosed location, so it came to a stop. I was waiting out here in the horrible wind for the train to go by. It crosses a large field here, and I thought with the zoom lens on my camcorder I'd get a really nice shot. Or at least the shot would have been really nice if there was sun, but I digress. Anyways, the crew was doing something. I don't know, I saw them get out of the lead unit. Honestly, I don't really understand South Shore's operations that well, despite, it's like a local railroad. But anyways, after a while, the train throttled up, and if you look closely, you can see the smoke coming off the lead unit. Speaking of smoke, I'm pretty sure the FURX leaser was having some mechanical troubles because it did not sound good. Anyways, the train cleared this farmhouse, and then rolled past the closest spot at the undisclosed location. And there's the across the field shot I was going for. Yeah, it doesn't look that good. Especially with that trash there and the fact that it was a extremely cloudy and cold day. Not to mention the wind muffling the audio. After the South Shore passed the undisclosed location, I managed to chase it on foot to the next undisclosed location. The train for some reason stopped right before the road and then accelerated again, which gave me time to make it to the previously mentioned next undisclosed spot. Fun fact, the FURX leaser was actually originally a Boston and Maine unit before going through several leasing companies and eventually ending up with FURX, which is kind of fun. My brother always calls it FURX, and I keep telling him, dude, it's an abbreviation, you pronounce each letter individually. He's probably just tired of my train ranting at this point. On March 24th, I'm back at the first undisclosed location, and we have another South Shore local, this time going the other direction, with two South Shore Veterans Jeeps. It's also running Long Hood forward this day. Interesting to note is that this is the first time I've seen 2009. With how many South Shore freight trains I've seen, you'd think I would have seen it at least once before now, but I guess not. Remember when I said that 203 was put on another Floridian after it was split up with 46? Well, on March 25th, it came back through the depot. This was in fact the third time I had tried to catch it because it had thunderstormed both the previous times. When I got there, I found a Norfolk Southern grain train heading westbound and swooping around the curve. Didn't get to see the power on it though. And like a millisecond later, B09 came by. B09, or what as I like to call it, the steel local freight, is, well, a local freight that carries steel. What did you expect? I really like it because it usually has Dash 9s as its exclusive power. And today, it did have a Dash 9, but it had an ace trailing. I have not seen B09 in months, and I have no idea why I stopped seeing it. I used to see it very frequently, but I prefer to see it twice more in this video because it made a resurgence. And Then, soon after, the regularly scheduled Amtrak darted around the corner with 203 in the lead. I was super stressing this whole trip because I thought they had taken 203 off the Floridian in Chicago because nobody bothered to report it when it passed through Chesterton. I don't know why nobody did that. Chesterton always gets reports because there's a rail cam there. I also brought my model of 203, which you might have seen in a couple of the On the DLM videos, along with this trip, and had my mom record a phone video from inside the car showing the real 203 passing the model. I know those are two random comments, but this video is unscripted. What do you expect? Then, the next day on March 26th, this was coming by on the CSX line, and yeah, no, I couldn't pass that up. So I headed to Walkerton 4 hours after it passed Delschler. 1853 and 1850 were the mid-DPUs on CSX I-115 this day, which normally is one of the more timely trains on CSX. In fact, all the CSX Heritage units I've seen have been on I-115. So I was expecting 1853 and 1850 to show up in a timely manner. Then, they completely vanished. I have no idea where these guys went. They weren't reported anywhere along the line, and they weren't even reported in Delschler for some reason, although I did see them go by on the rail cam, and they weren't even reported in Blue Island, so I don't even know what was going on with these two. Anyways, I sat at Walkerton for over 2 hours, and not a single train showed up, except I-116, the eastbound counterpart to I-115. So yeah, CSX did decide to tease me with this one. However, the leader was CSX 888, which is basically the modern incarnation of the CSX Crazy 8s, and it's a unit I've been trying to see for a while, so I was happy. On March 27th, my dad managed to catch a Norfolk Southern Intermodal with a C6M leading and Jijivo trailing. On March 29th, I just really wanted to see some trains as I kept getting scammed over and over, so I headed to the depot just for some basic trains. And Norfolk Southern must have known that CSX was giving me L after L, and so they decided to majorly pick up the pace and start sending me absolute bangers out of nowhere. I was at the depot for 2 hours on this day and got 6 trains. First was B08 with the Jivo leading and what I think is the lowest number -9 left on Norfolk Southern, number 9760, trailing. Depot Brub is back! He's back! Oh, she's back! Oh my god! It was rainy on this day and cold, so we were warming up in the car before we heard the horns of an eastbound approaching. We headed out to the covered spot, because obviously this is a depot, right? You can get shelter from the rain by the actual depot. But before the eastbound we heard could arrive, this extremely boring Elkhart originating manifest with 2 C6Ms had to clear. And shortly after, the eastbound came through with a very good lash up for modern Norfolk Southern standards. There was an ace leading and 2 Tier 4 GEVOs trailing second. If you don't know, there's only 80 Tier 4 GEVOs in NS, making them technically rarer than Dash 9s. So this was a really nice surprise. Then, a quite rare westbound approached. While the power was nothing special, a GEVO and C6M, it was a coal train, and a loaded coal. I don't think I've ever seen a loaded coal train before, which is extremely odd. Coal trains are also very rare on this line, especially non-Norfolk Southern branded ones, so this was a really nice surprise. Again. And shortly after, another eastbound and another Tier 4 GEVO was leading with a standard 1 trailing second. The signal for this eastbound was green for like 20 minutes before it arrived, so we thought it was going to block that westbound coal, but it didn't. However, there was something very, very special about this train that you hear in 1 second. Yep, we got a shave and a haircut, or in non-foamer terms, away from the engineer and a horn salute. If you don't know, this area is a quiet zone, so that's technically illegal. Still very nice of the crew, though. Then our final train came by, which was a westbound with an ace leading and very fresh C6M rebuild trailing second, only 1 month old at the time of filming. On the final day of March, I had made an agreement with my dad to go down to Walkerton to pace some more trains, but as you can probably see, this isn't Walkerton because CPKFC put together a redonkulous lash-up with CP7021 leading and a KCS Tier 4 GEVO trailing. Yes, I've already seen both of those individually, but I needed to get them together, so we canceled that trip and went to the depot. Plus, it was freezing anyway, so pacing would have been an absolute nightmare. Anyways, the first train that we moved to the other side of the depot for better lighting because this was in the afternoon, was 2 Norfolk Southern C6Ms on a intermodal. The leader looks fresh, but it's 4364. It was rebuilt like 7 years ago. And like 5 minutes after that, a practically identical, okay, not really, but you get the idea, Norfolk Southern Intermodal headed through with a AC44 leading and a GEVO trailing second, and of course I ruined the panning because I'm not used to panning while zoomed in. Ah, there's what I'm looking for. CPKC 231 with 7021 leading and the KCS Tier 4 trailing. This trade is normally all auto rack, so I don't know why it had a random manifest tacked onto the front today. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the whole state who got an actually decently lit shot of this thing, because everyone on the other side of the depot on this day, of which there were very many, got a backlit shot, and everywhere else in the state, well, it was cloudy most of the day. The sun appeared for like 5 minutes here. So I'm very fortunate to have gotten actually decent lighting on the shot. While I was submitting my report of 7021 to heritageunits.com, B09 showed up with the exact same consist as last time. And that was it for March Railfanning. Considering this was shot on the last day of the month, it's not shocking by any means that I didn't go on any trips for the rest of the month, which was, I said this was the end of the month, so the rest of the month from this point was like 6 hours. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this honestly pretty slapped together video. As I said, I recorded it while sick, and I have a massive headache right now while speaking into the microphone. I definitely shouldn't have done this, but whatever, I'm determined to get this video out on time. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this documentary, and make sure to come back next time for, wait a minute, I'm not using that catchphrase anymore, catch 'em while you can.